Just finished watching Halo episode number 7, Inheritance. It focuses almost exclusively on KWAN and SOREN working their way through Madrigal. And I think a lot of people, myself included, are definitely soured to the KWAN storyline. I don't care that the show is in the Silver universe and that a lot of the events aren't directly mappable to the Halo extended lore in the books or any of the known truths that we see in the games themselves. I'm fine with them taking a totally unique taste or spin around the world or a totally different take of things. Fine with that. The problem I have with KWAN is that she is just not a compelling character. You think of like traditional storytelling. You think of the hero's journey, right? And you want them to grow and you want them to learn and you want to see them succeed. Or ultimately, if it's a tragedy, fail horribly. Everything I have seen about Halo in the video game definitely isn't a complete tragedy. There are definitely some characters that don't do very well. KWAN doesn't seem to be like one of those people. And as much as I think everybody would universally celebrate KWAN meeting some horrendous demise because it's over, we can move on to something else, I don't think that's what the Halo showrunners have in mind for her storyline. So the question you have to ask yourself then is, what is she doing? What is actually going on with KWAN? And we're still not sure. We have a whole episode dedicated to her, pulling us away from a really gripping Master Chief story, which I know a lot of you were kind of on the fence about at the beginning. I have been a faithful believer that this show was going to be something special. I think Master Chief's storyline is special, and I'm invested in him. And I'm invested in the rest of the Silver team. And I'm curious to see what happens now that McKee has been inserted, strategically, of course, to kind of exploit the Master Chief. And he's got this great division going on in his head between Cortana and Halsey. We now know that he's been betrayed by everyone he loves. That is kind of that overarching umbrella that was the Spartan 2 program, right? And he's starting to uncover the truth, and it's becoming very interesting. So what's the best thing we could do for the pacing of the show? We're going to stop all that. We're going to spend an entire episode with KWAN. And at the end of it, giving her basically an entire hour with a little bit of SOREN. I'll get to him in just a moment. But we give KWAN almost an hour of television to get out there and to become something. And at the end of it, I feel like there's no more to KWAN now than there was back at the beginning of episode number 1. And that's the problem I have. We're investing time that's being taken away from other things for a character who just is not interesting and does not feel like there's any redemption arc to her or any character growth to her or any of that. Look at what she's done in this episode. She's still defiant and hellbent on overthrowing big evil UNSC in Madrigal. And really no reason why other than it's the right thing to do. We get a flashback of her life prior to the big battle at the beginning of episode 1, where she is a very defiant person and understands the terms of this war. They bring in the straggler. She gets in an argument with this other kid and basically says, it's nice for you that when the war is over, you go back to doing what you're doing. You don't understand the war because for me, my life is essentially over. I'm dedicating everything I can. Maybe the flashback should have gone back 5 years prior or 10 years prior. So that sentence may have had a little more emphasis or a little bit more meaning behind it. Nope, we don't get any of that. Instead, what we get is a lot of nonsensical mythical, drink the magic potion, you're going to go back in time. You need to become strong enough to go back to where it all began, which was the beginning of episode 1, surprisingly enough, back to where it all started, where she finds a stash of money and somehow manipulates, through just dumb luck, some of the UNSC leadership who is kind of taken over the planet into a firefight in which she successfully eradicates them, I think. I don't know. We don't actually see anyone die per se, although I would argue an explosive fireball of that nature most likely killed most of them, if not horrifically scarred them. Doesn't mean the UNSC is any less interested or any more interested in Madrigal. As a matter of fact, one of the main reasons why that planet was so important was the rich mineral deposits that they had. Yet, one of their main factories where their ore is sucking the stuff out of the earth is surprisingly off. So it's easy to poke holes in KWAN's story because there are many holes to poke. And what is this all about? And at the end of the episode, Soren comes along, who is the only highlight of this subplot, in my opinion. But he's right back where he started. He manages to escape Madrigal at some point after the last episode. KWAN clearly does not murder him, which we knew she wasn't going to. He goes home. He ends up stealing more stuff from the UNSC, returns to his pirate ways, and then decides, I'm actually going to go back to Madrigal, somehow, miraculously, know exactly where KWAN is, despite the fact that there is a bounty on her on this planet. Everybody's looking for her, but Soren manages to get to her first. They have a small action sequence at the end. Soren is now wealthy from the stash of money they found in this old factory, and he seemingly is going to go back home again. His mission has been complete. He is nothing more than a pirate. He wants to go back to the rubble. And I would perfectly be 100% content with the rest of Soren's storyline being him as a pirate. I'm fine with that. I really enjoy that. It's very unique to see when a Spartan goes rogue, taking all of those trainings and all of those enhancements and using them for his own personal good, not the good of humanity, by stealing and looting and pillaging to bring wealth back to his little colony of rubble, to raise up a family and make more pirates. And that's the cyberpunky, post-apocalyptic-y, Star Wars-y-esque world I want to see. I like the rubble. I don't like Madrigal, and I don't like KWAN. And unfortunately, this episode was a real miss for me because that's all we got. Now, I am pretty sure that the next episode we're going to yo-yo back to Master Chief and McKee. We've seen some of that in the preview footage already of them talking. That will probably bear a lot more fruit, especially of their revelation of the Halo at the end of episode number 6, Solace. But as far as KWAN's storyline is concerned, I don't know how far the writers have written into this. Clearly, season 1 is in the books. It's not like they're going to be able to rewrite the last few minutes. I'm curious to see, though, based on the critical feedback that they have gotten, and really an objective look at looking back at what Halo Season 1 offered, KWAN really needs to either get with it or move on. There are way more interesting things, there are way more interesting themes and people in this universe. More on Halsey, more on Keyes, more on Keyes' daughter, Miranda Keyes. Either Keyes I would accept. Any of the Spartans are more interesting. Soren's more interesting. Paganowski and the UNSC and Oni Big Navy and their kind of power struggle, more interesting. The Artifact, the Covenant attacking random worlds. Any of it. Give me any of it. Just don't give me any more KWAN. And I hope this is the last we see of her, but I don't think we will. But the good news is, if there's any silver lining to the end of Halo Season 1, it's that we won't have any more KWAN for a while. So I am really over this character. I think many of you are as well. I want to hear from you guys in the comments below. Let me know how right or wrong I got this. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.